Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome to DFS Pick 6. Rotoworld, RotoGrinders joining forces, and also I'm joining forces with two of the absolute best in the business. First, we got Hribar, Lord Reeves. What's going on, buddy?
That wasn't a bad segue, a little intro there. That was all right. But here we are, man. Week 7, fresh off the heels of losing another great player again, possibly the best player in this position again. It seems like every week we might lose the best fantasy player in this position at this point. And if you want to look defensively, losing guys like J.J. Watt and Eric Berry so far too, who might be the best players in their position. It's been a rough, continuous strand here of just serious injuries in the NFL. So hopefully we come out scotch-free this week in week 7.
Hey, if we lose to Julio Jones, I'm going to stop losing money by rostering every week. And also joining us, fresh off, he's an all-star. We all know that. He's ESPN famous now, like the Silva bump. Now, no, I can't stop it. It's true. What's up, Evan Silva? How you doing, man?
What's up, Eric Crain? Doing pretty well. Had a solid week in DFS. A lot of Larry Fitz,
Nice.
Every week's a Larry Fitz week.
Every week is a Larry Fitz week. Oh, man.
Well.
Yeah, well, glad to hear it. So we're kind of going from a week last week that was, I don't know, it had some juicy stuff. And now we're kind of approaching a week this week where you look at the slate and it just goes, you go, woof. I mean, this is ugly. And I think very clearly, Reeves, there's one premier game on the slate as far as I'm concerned. We're going to start up with that game. It's the Saints at the Packers, a 47.5 total. Saints are 5.5-point favorites. And, of course, I mean, there are a number of ways we can go here. Drew Brees, yeah, he's on the road, but Green Bay can't stop anybody through the air. On the other side, we got Brett Hundley. He's super cheap. New Orleans, not a great pass defense. They're not as bad as everybody thought they were. But, Reeves, talk to me about this game because I think there are so many different ways we can go in this game that I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it depends on how you feel like the game is going to play out, at least when you're looking at the Saints side. Given how the Saints have played their last 3 games, they've dominated game script. I mean, after the first 2 games where they trailed by 2 or more scores for a third of their snaps, I mean, they have they've been 9th in NFL in run rate those past 3 games. They've led by 2 or more possessions on half their snaps in the league over that span. And it's really kind of capped Drew Brees' output. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 3 straight games. Only the 4th time he's done that as a Saint. So, I mean, if we feel like Brett Hundley hurts the Packers' chances to make this a game or the Saints really control this game, it could be interesting because Drew Brees had the Saints had 16 possessions in that game last Sunday, and Drew Brees was not even in the top 20 of quarterbacks. If you'd have told – I tried so hard to wedge Drew Brees in like cash lineups last week, and if you would have told me that I was going to get 16 Drew Brees possessions and I wasn't even going to get top 20 production, man, oh my goodness, I'd have lit even more money on fire. But I mean,
been there, buddy. I have been there.
Yeah. So I mean, we had the perfect storm for that Adrian Peterson trade and the pricing for both Saints guys last week because we talked about the possessions. So say it's 16 possessions. Those guys, Kamara and Ingram, they combined for 44 touches and 237 yards from scrimmage. So both those guys we talked about, being kind of free squares, and Ingram with the 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was an absolute hammer. If you played him, it was easy street, basically from there on out, no matter what, if you hit Drew Brees or not. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. We'll hash out some more of the matchups as this goes back and forth between us. But if you think the Saints are going to control this game, it's not a great spot considering how they played for the passing game, the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, and Evan, like Rich said, if you played Mark Ingram last week, you were just sitting so pretty. And I could not believe some of the ownership that's on him. I mean, he was 20-something% over on DK in the tournaments. FanDuel, though, did you see this? It was unbelievable.
Much lower.
7% in tournaments in the millie over there. I was just floored by it. So I guess my question for you, Evan, is this the new Saints offense? Like they just have this, this 2-headed backfield. Both can go off. They're going to get a lot of touches. Is this what we can expect now from the Saints moving forward?
I would not go so far as to say that this is the new offense, but I definitely would go so far as to say that they have a very, very good running game. Right now, they are that Adrian Peterson trade just worked out well for both sides, and that's really how trades should go theoretically. I mean, it should not be one side getting ripped off and one side, winning each trade. Whether it be in fantasy football trades or in real life, like both teams should benefit from a trade like that, and both teams did benefit immediately from that trade. We saw Mark Ingram jump to 66% of the snaps, 30 touches. I don't even think he'll get 30 touches maybe the rest of the season, but I think that he will be in that 20 touch per game range. Nothing really to fear about the Packers from a run defense standpoint. They're 18th in run defense DVOA. I mean, Mark Ingram, I think, is again a great play. I think that what is notable here is that the Saints are now number 2 in adjusted line yards at Football Outsiders. They got Teron Armstead back. He is one of the most athletic left tackles in the league, maybe the most athletic left tackle in football. I mean, this dude ran like a 4.6 40 at the combine. I remember he's an absolute monster.
That's the same speed I run, for what it's worth.
Right. And I mean, they had a great offensive line last year as well. They were top 8 in adjusted line yards. Now they're number 2. So look, they still have a very explosive passing game, and I think that that's going to come into play at times. But I think that going to Green Bay and trying to run the ball on the Packers makes a lot of sense for them. And I think that on the other side, the Packers are going to try to run the ball more too. They have a pretty good running game. The Saints don't have a great run defense, allowing 4.3 yards per carry to opposing RBs. That's bottom 10 in the league. And then, now they're dealing with the loss of Aaron Rodgers. So, I don't think that this is going to be a shootout necessarily, but I do think that both teams can have offensive success. What I really wanted to hear was Rich Hribar's take on Brett Hundley as a player, because our sample on him is super limited at the NFL level. I mean, we are limited to college production.
That's a kind way to say it.
College production and preseason production. I'm just throwing out what happened last week. I mean, I don't even think that that's worth discussion. And really, I thought that when I watched the game, he got better, like the more that he was in there, which is what you would want to see, really. But what do you think, Reeves? And quarterback evaluation is very tough. The NFL isn't even good at it. But what do you think about Brett Hundley as a player?
When Hundley came out, I went and found my quarterback article I wrote in that draft class when I was still doing a lot of dynasty coverage, and
yep.
My objective model really loved Hundley, and I had like a low first round grade on him for my model, and he ended up going way later. I was really shocked. I remember during the draft that he went so far, because it was Winston, Mariota, and he was the third quarterback taken, but it was like a huge gap.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him kind of like objectively, he kind of comped to like a mix of like Cam Newton and Andrew Luck. Like was a really good athlete. Age adjusted production was all there. I mean, he was a 21-year-old senior, was really young. But I mean, like, I was going back through the article though, and I was reading like some of the faults for Brett Hundley, and there was a writer that used to write for the Lions. His name was Darren Page. He's kind of like faded into the ether, but he used to chart all these quarterbacks, and where Hundley was bad was vertically and like to the boundaries. And last week that kind of showed up again. He was just 2 of 6 on throws, 15 yards or further downfield, and to the boundaries he was 15 of 28. Like, not too great. But I mean, like Evan said, I don't want to put a lot of stock in it because you're throwing in the fire on the road against the Mike Zimmer defense. No matter what, the Saints have been playing better on defense, but I mean, this is, still not a defense that's on the level of the Minnesota Vikings. The other thing that Hundley was really bad at in college, though, is he's got a little, he's not quite Deshaun Kaiser-esque, but he's a little slow on his reads, and pressure really affects him. I mean, he was just 5 of 14 under pressure in that game. The Saints are a team that likes to bring a lot of heavy pressure and pressure packages, so it will be interesting to see, how he develops that. But at home, a full week to prepare. They've still got a lot of really good offensive personnel here. And like you said, I think I'm not really in a rush to stream him, but I mean, we're talking like DFS pricing and where he's at on both sites. I have no problem, using him in like situations where you're stacking this game and trying to, hit on pricing there. I would even consider maybe possibly not stacking him with any of his own players and just using him for his value play, little naked Hundley for us. Because when you look at the Packers receivers, none of these guys were living off of, high yardage floors. All these dudes were living off of touchdown production. Jordy Nelson, 40% of his fantasy points have come from touchdowns this year. 33% Devontae Adams. The only 100-yard receiving game any of the Packers guys have came from Geronimo Allison. He's their only 100-yard game of the season. I mean, none of these guys living on yardage. So I think that no matter what, the touchdown upside is compromised. I mean, it just is. These guys aren't going to score at the rate that they were finding the paint. So, I mean, It's tough. If you want to look at like the matchups, I think that the individual matchup aligns to say where Hundley's good at over the middle of the field and intermediate, and where the Saints are worst at defending slot receivers. It would kind of lead you to Randall Cobb, but Cobb has just been a declining asset throughout every week of the season. His target share has gone down every week. His yardage has gone down every week. He's a really tough, like blind faith, like trust just because of matchup and it with a backup quarterback, even though it would kind of lead us to believe that like he should be the benefactor here. But what do you think about that?
I think that anytime I've played Randall Cobb, it's been a leap of faith. I mean, I wanted to like Randall Cobb so many times, and then every time I'm like, oh God, just please somehow catch 12 balls. But like you said, I mean, Hundley struggles with pressure. He's going to be dumping it aloft. Marty Bennett's been invisible this year. No, I have no problem with Cobb here. And Evan, I'm going to go as far as say that I bet you, we're talking about this on Wednesday, of course. I bet you by Sunday morning, Brett Hundley is the chalk.
So on FanDuel, he has a $500 price differential from Tyrod Taylor. And look, I kind of want to play Brett Hundley because he's like the new toy. But I mean, I have these crazy biases, as everyone else does, but I think that Tyrod Taylor is a significantly better play than Brett Hundley. With that said, I'm going to have some Brett Hundley. I think the play in the receiver core is Jordy Nelson. We talked about Reeves talked about the slot. Jordy plays in the slot a bunch. He was 32% in the slot last week. And if you look at when Hundley came in, who was he targeting? He was targeting Devontae Adams a lot. I mean, Devontae Adams led the team in targets when he came in and had the most fantasy points. But Devontae Adams plays on the outside where he's going to run into a lot of Marshawn Lattimore and Ken Crawley, two of the most underrated, one of the most underrated perimeter CB duos in football. And people are going to be chasing those points, I think. I don't think that Devontae Adams is going to be like high owned, but I think that in stacks, people will be chasing that. But Jordy Nelson had 9 targets from Hundley, which is only one fewer than Devontae Adams. He had more catches, more yards than Devontae Adams, and he's going to get more slot routes. So if you're going to try to stack Brett Hundley, and I definitely lean with Reeves that the best way to probably play Brett Hundley is to play him naked. I think if you are going to stack him with someone, it would be with Jordy. But I think what you're looking for is rushing production, maybe a rushing touchdown, and pretty much anything that you get as a passer is kind of gravy. The dude ran for 30 rushing touchdowns in 3 years at UCLA. In the NFL preseasons, he's played in 3 preseasons. He has a 10-2 touchdown interception ratio as a passer and 2 rushing scores. You really want the rushing TD.
Yeah, and it definitely might be there. Speaking of rushing TDs, Green Bay, we mentioned earlier. Oh, I'm sorry. Look at Reeves. He's over there with the cheat code.
The Konami code.
You want it, man. You want it.
Well, we were talking about kind of like the rushing game and Green Bay. We look at Aaron Jones, Ty Montgomery. Reeves, how do we break down this Packers running game right now? Because I'm really struggling to do it.
Yeah, and the split was way in the favor of Aaron Jones. But, I mean, when you look at what the Saints are, they're allowing the most receptions per game to wide receivers. It would seem to benefit Ty Montgomery, and they probably benefit as an offense, to get Ty Montgomery reworked into the passing game here. He had an almost touchdown, which probably in 90% of all football played across the world would have been a touchdown. If you would have tried to say that wasn't a touchdown when we were playing pickup football, man, like the game would have ended. We all would have fought. It would have been over. But, I mean, you got to get the snaps just haven't been there yet, with him just coming back. It looked like they were going to use him that first drive, but then it was just kind of all Aaron Jones. This way, Aaron Jones ran 27 pass routes to 10 for Ty Montgomery in that game last week. It could have just been, 1 week where they're just getting him back. But it's hard. It's like it's a leap of faith to play either of the Packers backs, man. It really is. But I mean, the game should benefit Ty Montgomery more, given where the Saints are vulnerable to running backs.
And on the New Orleans side, I mean, I know we'd spend a lot of time talking about Brett Hundley, but I'm looking at Drew Brees as, I mean, he's just a lock for 23, 24 DK points this week, Evan. I mean, between this Packers team, they can't cover anybody in the secondary. Like Brees to Michael Thomas, it's going to be awfully hard to talk me off of that stack.
I think Reeves would disagree with what you just said. And I think that I mean, I'm going to have some Breeze for sure, for sure, with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas has led the team in targets every single game that they played so far. But this team is definitely more balanced, and I think that they're going to continue to try to be more balanced than they have in past years this particular week. What say you, Reeves?
I love Michael Thomas, though. I like Michael Thomas a lot more than Breeze. Michael Thomas is – I think pricing on both sites is Michael Thomas is basically my lead receiver, probably as like just regular cash. I'll probably have the most exposure to. Last week was the first time he ever had fewer than 8 PPR points in his career so far. We talked about Darius Slay, maybe in a little negative light, and Darius Slay won that one last week. So, we pick it up. And it was a game where they were just extremely run heavy, too. Because like I said, they just dominated. They were up. It was 45-10 at one point in that game. I know the final score ended up getting like crazy there as things kind of got off the rails with defensive lineman touchdowns and other turnovers. But I would go right back to Michael
I'm not
Thomas.
giving Darius Slay the W there. I mean, he was only on him for 4 of 6 targets, and when Drew Brees throws for 180, no one's really gonna.
Yeah. But that's been a running trend. I mean, like I said, that they've dominated, favorable snap and favorable game script the past 3 games, and Drew Brees has been kind of capped because of it. I don't want this to be our new Drew Brees.
No, that's no fun. Bring Sean Payton, if you're out there watching, and I know you're a regular listener of this show. So if you're out there watching, listening, whatever, let's get back to some old school Drew. I caught a pass from Drew Brees in the offseason. Like, come on, Drew. We're buddies now, okay? Start airing it out. I would really appreciate that. All right, let's go to our next game. It's a couple teams that don't necessarily air it out a ton. It's Dallas at San Fran, a 46-point total. Dallas, 6-point favorites. I know we were kind of talking about love Michael Thomas this week. Brett Hundley's in play. But in this game, I'm looking at, well, I guess we'll find out with Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know what – Is he officially playing? Is that for sure?
You've been playing too much basketball, man, Crain. You've been playing.
Well, I knew that there was an injunction. I knew yada yada yada. But okay, so Zeke,
he's playing this weekend next.
Okay, and then he's gone.
He's playing the rest of the season.
Probably.
There have been so many freaking twists and turns with this Ezekiel Elliott thing. I'm just not believing anything. If it changed tomorrow, it wouldn't shock me. So whatever. All right. Anyways, talk to me about Zeke, Reeves, since you guys just bashed me like that.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke is in a pretty prime spot here, even though the game's on the road. I mean, he's facing a team that's facing the most running back touches per game. We kind of talked about that a little bit last week. The 49ers have allowed, 7 top 24 backs. That's tied for the most in the league. He's actually, a lot of people look at Zeke's season there and like maybe kind of think it's kind of lackluster so far. But I mean, he's gone over 130 yards from scrimmage in each of the last 2 games. He went over 140 yards in week 1. He's only been under 96 yards from scrimmage in 1 game so far. He hasn't been lighting up in the ilk of last year, but the volume has still been there and the production's still been there. He's priced way under. Just the gap from him to Le'Veon is pretty high. I mean, they're really making it. They're really making you say, if you want to play Le'Veon, like, so be it. Like, if you want to pay this $10,000, which is kind of tough to stomach, you want to keep forcing him in there like we did last year. We're at the point where it was like last year with him and David Johnson. It's like, well, just do it and then work from there.
Yeah, figure out the rest. Exactly.
But when you're starting to get gaps, big gaps from these guys now, and Zeke's, like $1,000 cheaper, and what that can do for you, in your roster, and he still has such an uber safe floor and probably a lot of upside this week against the 49ers team, like you said, that struggled against running backs the entire season. I would say that he's probably one of the safest plays on the board this week. And this is a game, I mean, I wish this game was hidden in like a better slate of games. Because I think that this game is highlighted because of the slate. But, it was a game that probably would fly under the radar in like normal circumstances. I think it's a game that, like, when the 49ers played the Colts a couple weeks ago, it's a real good shot to go over that 47 and set it right now. Yeah. Especially the 49ers have been game. I mean, they've hung around with teams, and made teams, push the ball at the envelope on offense, which has helped us out because they suck on defense. So, I mean, keeping just it looked like Kirk Cousins was going to just probably pump the brakes last week, but the 49ers kept it a game and it kept going. Kirk Cousins was the QB1 in fantasy last week, and that's what you're going to get from the 49ers now. And the Cowboys can't stop anyone. Both these teams, the Cowboys are 27th in red zone possessions allowed, and the 49ers are 32nd. So there's scoring potential in this game. Like I said, I wish it was a little more hidden, but the slate's so bad, it kind of illuminates it a little bit.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And Evan, we were talking about Zeke with Dallas here. San Fran, they also don't have any good cornerbacks. So, like, to me, it's Zeke and it's or Dez, but at least one of these guys on Dallas is going to go off.
Dez is going off.
All right, that's it. That's all I needed.
Dez is the dude. So we're going to have a little bit of like a philosophy or, like talking about things that we don't really know about. Okay. So teams coming off the bye.
Okay.
So, I've been doing fantasy for like 10 years at this point, and for like the first 6 years of my fantasy football career, I always just assumed that teams coming off the bye, that was a positive thing. Okay. But, as I've started to like become like much more like monetarily invested in all this stuff, and, playing DFS and sports betting and, talking to guys like Warren Sharp and even talking to like ex-NFL players like Ross Tucker, and like I've noticed that there is like teams that are coming off the bye don't necessarily meet expectations or I almost would have like expected them to exceed expectations, during the first 6 years of my, fantasy football, my career as a fantasy football analyst. But that is not the case. And last week, let's look at last week. Falcons they lose at home as 2 touchdown favorites coming off the bye. Broncos lose at home. I still can't.
Ooh.
Oh my.
Ooh is right.
So, the Redskins as 2-score favorites barely eke out that win. Saints had a great offensive performance, almost blew the game, but they obviously had the best performance among the teams coming off the bye. So, Reeves, have you ever looked into teams coming off the bye, and would this concern you for Dak? Because look, I think I'm going to go like maybe 100% on Dez this week, and I'm going to be heavy on Dak and plenty of Zeke, and maybe even mixing some Witten, probably not, but. Have you ever looked into this or considered it? I've talked to Ross about it, and Ross is like, Ross played for a bunch of different teams, played for the Browns, the Patriots, the Redskins, the Bills. He was like, sometimes it was a good thing and sometimes it was a bad thing. We would get out of our routine, we go visit our families. We're creatures of habit, and when we would get out of our routine, sometimes we would not show up, the next week. And we just saw the friggin' Broncos. They didn't show up at all.
Yeah.
They didn't show up in that game. And the Falcons, I don't know what the heck happened with them either. Their performance is actually just much more explainable because they got their butts kicked. They lost the time of possession battle by like 11 minutes. Jay Ajayi the Dolphins offense, like their running game, imposed their will against the Falcons, but you wouldn't expect that to really happen in Atlanta. So Reeves, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I remember watching that game with my buddy here that I watch the games with, and when the Dolphins came out that 9-minute drive to start the second half, I was like, this isn't good, man. I was like,
yeah.
Because I had a ton of Julio last week, and I was like, this ain't no good, man. Like, this ain't good. But I haven't really spent a lot of time with it. But anecdotally, I would say when you think about how teams perform to start the season, it would make sense. Coming off of not really in rhythm, and we had a very slow first 2 weeks of the season, and I know when I have a vacation, I tend to not come back to work strong. When I'm off, it takes me a little bit to get back.
Wait. They give you guys vacations over there?
Reeves doesn't take vacation.
Okay.
Listen, man, I had a 9 to 5 with this, for the last 15 years. So
that's no joke, man.
All right. So he did take vacation.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I haven't spent a lot of time with it. I know Hayden, a guy that worked for Rotoworld, spent some time with it though, and showed that passing games tend to fluctuate and underperform in these situations. Like I said, it's really hard when you look at just the individual matchup and not like be in love here. We've talked about it a couple of times on the show. Like, I think Dak is the best fantasy cash game quarterback there is. His floor is the best fantasy floor now. I mean, now that Rodgers is out,
He was
he's
like
the
that
only-
last year too.
He was the only comparable guy was Aaron Rodgers, and now that he's off the shelf. I mean, because Dak will never get up to that high because he doesn't really drop 35-point games, but he's always getting you like 17 to 20 like every week. Like he's worth it to pay for. But I mean, I'm going to own a lot of Dak Prescott. It's gonna be hard to push me up. I hope I'm not wrong for it. But I just haven't spent a lot of time with it, looking at it. It's something I'll stick a pin in, though, and definitely will go in and try to pull some data on.
You know, and we're talking about we love this game as a whole. We like the Dallas side. We like Zeke. We like Dak. We like Dez. So I guess my question, Evan, for you is on the San Fran side. Like, I don't like clicking any of these buttons, but I'm probably going to click some of these buttons. Talk to me about the 49ers.
Oh, dude. Hey, you can click a lot of buttons here.
Oh,
man.
no.
Man.
Oh, you're just trying to click my buttons now. Just that's scary.
No, man. Beathard. Let's start with Beathard.
All right.
I kind of think he's a low-key baller a little bit. I mean, I think he's underrated as an athlete. In the preseason, he had 6 rushes for 85 yards and a touchdown. He had a long touchdown run.
Yeah.
Last week, he had a 14-yard scramble. Pretty good scrambler at Iowa. Just played in an offense that was just not suitable to have like great, prolific stats. If you go back and read that article that Peter King wrote after the NFL draft, which got kind of torn to shreds because it was so much. Some people had so many takeaways from about Joe Williams, and he, of course, is now on injured reserve. But there was a big section in there about C.J. Beathard and how Kyle Shanahan looked at all these quarterbacks, didn't really like any of them, but he really liked C.J. Beathard. And they went. I don't think they traded up for C.J. Beathard, but they did make a bunch of trade ups. They made a bunch of trades in that draft, and C.J. Beathard was the quarterback that they came away with, and they've been pretty quick to insert him. I mean, the 49ers have a bad record, but they're not a bad team. I think their point differential is very, very small. I mean, they've been in a ton of close games. They just lost them for a variety of reasons. And C.J. Beathard facing the Cowboys, they get smashed by quarterbacks. And then you add in, C.J. Beathard adds some upside with his Konami code. And if you look at his targets and how he spread them around after he came off the bench last week, he knew where to go with the ball. He was throwing the ball to the right guys. He targeted Pierre Garçon 8 times. He targeted Carlos Hyde and George Kittle 6 times. And Cowboys, they haven't been as vulnerable to tight ends so far this year, but they really haven't faced any great tight ends. So I think George Kittle, again, this is not –
do you have a George Kittle jersey, or do you just have a closet of George Kittle jerseys?
I like good fantasy plays, Crain. and George Kittle is a good fantasy play again, So and then I think Garçon is still – he's not trustworthy. But, I mean, no one's going to play him. And then I think Carlos Hyde can really smash. The Cowboys are 32nd in run defense DVOA. The 49ers are at home. We assign this game to the show because there are good fantasy plays on both sides. And I would not sleep on these 49ers by any means.
And because you wanted to talk about George Kittle.
Because I want to talk about good fantasy plays. Okay.
Oh, I know. I just love your love for George Kittle. Reeves, where are you looking at with this San Fran side? Is it a Kittles and Bits week for you?
Yeah, I don't mind the Beathard, the Hawkeye connection. The old college battery. Them dudes they drafted together.
Kirk Ferentz is going up to the game, getting pumped.
Kirk Ferentz, they didn't let George Kittle run any routes at Iowa, but he was out there blocking dudes.
I think he had like 18 catches last year at Iowa.
But I mean, yeah, Kittle's a good athlete, like we talked about last week. He had another horrendous drop though in that game, drive me crazy. But I mean, I'm looking at Carlos Hyde, man. His pricing on both sites still kind of priced down by the fear of what happened. But he played the highest percent of snaps he's played since week 2, coming off a week where everyone was kind of like doom and gloom. Is Matt Breida going to take over for Carlos Hyde? He didn't really light it up, rushing wise, but he had the 2 touchdowns. He now leads the NFL in rushing attempts, from inside the 10-yard line. So the touchdown upside has been there. And you look at the Cowboys, man. I mean, they're expecting to get Sean Lee back. They've just been gashed. I mean, you look at 3 of their past 4 games, they've allowed the highest scoring running back week to C.J. Anderson. Then they came back and allowed the second highest scoring running back week to Todd Gurley. Then they came and allowed the 4th highest scoring running back to Aaron Jones in his first ever career start. Sandwiched in between a game in there was the only team they shut down was Arizona with Chris Johnson. And like that's the only team that they stopped. And then the Giants week 1. So, I mean, they've just been getting mauled on the ground. I look at Carlos Hyde's pricing on both sites. I think he's really reasonably to fit in any type of structure that you want to play. I think he's got a good floor. I think he's got high upside, and he checks all the boxes for what you want, man. He's catching passes this year. The workload has still been there outside of 1 game. I mean, the performance has been there. He's been top 20 back every week but that 1. And the goal line touches are there. So, I mean, why not? I mean, you look at the matchup and everything else being at home, and then if Evans, right, you get this game where the Cowboys are lackluster coming out of a bye, and they already are lackluster to begin with on defensively. I mean, it's a spot where he can really crush his pricing where he's at.
Crain, I hope your ears were perking up on all that analysis, buddy.
I'm excited about Carlos Hyde.
You're the real high volume player here. This dude checks every box.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what I was just scanning the target. He had 6 targets in the passing, and that's one of the nice things about Hyde too. Yeah. He's seen like 12% of his team's total targets this year. I mean, he had 6 targets last week, 13 carries last week, and plus this game. It should be a little bit – well, keep away Cowboys. I don't know if it'll be higher pace, but at the same time, like, I don't care. It's still a guy at home. He's playing – I like the spot. I like the spot for Carlos.
Beathard was looking for him in the passing game, dude.
I haven't watched any film yet. Was those targets come in after Beathard was in?
Yes. All of them did. 6 of 6, Crain.
Oh, all 6 of them?
Yes.
All right. Let's party then. Let's party. CJ Hyde, George Kittle stack, and then we just get everybody. We get everybody with that. All right, why not? All right, let's talk about a game that is not on the main slate, but we wish it was. It's Atlanta at New England, total of 56. New England.
It is on FanDuel.
All right, it's on FanDuel. All right, see, I play more DK, even though tonight I'm sweating a little FanDuel tonight. I ain't gonna lie, but DK. But like, okay, so Rich, let's talk about this game because New England. God, the Jets put up over 20 points. Like, I mean, this defense, like, I kind of expected them to get fixed, and it just doesn't seem to be happening.
Yeah, I mean, here we are with the ultimate slump buster, and we've got a slumping quarterback in Matt Ryan. He hasn't been higher than the QB 15 since week 1. He's already thrown 6 interceptions. He threw 7 all of last year. But the ultimate slump buster, the team that awoke Cam Newton from his, deep hibernation, a team that just allowed 354 passing yards to Josh McCown and the vaunted aerial attack of the New York Jets. They've allowed 6 300-yard passers on the season in 6 games. They were the first team to allow 5 straight 300 passers ever at any point in the season. Now they went back and just did it a 6th time. So, I mean, this is a spot where you have to just really, think that this is a spot where Matt Ryan really gets it going. And there's still reasons to like Matt Ryan. A lot of his peripheral stats are real good. His per possession numbers are amongst the best in the NFL outside of just touchdown production. He's actually second to Tom Brady in passing yards per drive on the season. So, I mean, obviously a lot of people are going to be on this game and are going to play Matt Ryan because every quarterback has torched, the Patriots to this point. But, I mean, it's a spot to really like him. Now, as that pertains to the rest of the passing game, I know a lot of people are really thinking this is the week for Julio, all the buzz from, Dan Quinn. But, man, it still is going down in New England. They're giving up a glutton of passing yards, but they faced a lot of true, really good receivers, and those dudes have not hung up, points on them. I mean, Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kelvin Benjamin all turned in wide receiver 2, wide receiver lines. It was the tight ends, the wide receiver 2s, and the running backs who are really crushing the Patriots out of the backfield that have been putting up all those passing yards and those passing points. So, I mean, I'm not as much in on Julio Jones as I think a lot of people are this week just because the Patriot stigma, because they're still doing the old Patriot way, man, of just taking lead options. You could extend that out to Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce as well. the guys that they focused on and have shut down. That's still happening, but they're giving up all this production elsewhere. I mean, I don't want to, just eat up all the clock here, but I mean, we'll get to it. I mean, I'm all about some Tevin Coleman on DraftKings this week.
All right, so talk to me about this Atlanta offense, Evan. Are you off Julio too? Because I'm just
not off him.
I'm off of. I'm done with Julio. He's on the list. He's wearing the stink hat. I want nothing to do with Julio, man. I'm sick of the guy.
You're playing Sanu, right? I mean, that's how you win $1 million.
Well, yeah, I'm playing Sanu, my man.
I mean, I wish that Julio's price had not gone up. Like, he gets 4 catches for 72 and his price goes up. Like, I don't think I'm going to be trying to jam him in this week, on FanDuel at 8,800. I really like Reeves' idea of Tevin Coleman. I think that if you flash back to last year, and, that's kind of idealistic, but if you flash back to last year, I think that what Kyle Shanahan would have done is he would have ran Tevin Coleman right at these bum Patriots linebackers, and Tevin Coleman would have gotten 14 touches for 140 and 2 TDs.
I miss those days.
The Patriots defense is terrible, and it's going to stay terrible. It's not going to get better. It actually was not good last year. However, in the second half of the season, they faced a bunch of bum quarterbacks that didn't score any points against them. It's a legit bad defense and is not going to get better. I'm telling you right now, it is not going to get better, and we're going to keep attacking it every single week. And yes, this is the week to be on Matt Ryan, and I really want to like Julio, but I don't know why his price went up, and Reeves makes some really good points. So it's hard for. I mean, I almost want to just play Matt Ryan naked and play Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman also has crazy road splits over the past couple of seasons. I want to like Taylor Gabriel, but I think Sanu is going to play.
Yeah.
So
Hooper too, man. He kills Hooper too.
Right. So no, we can't play Sanu coming off a hamstring. Stop it. So I think that the plays here on the Patriots side, I want to talk about Dion Lewis a little bit.
All right.
Mike Gillislee's a bum. He's a bum, and he's scoreless in 4 straight. He has 0 targets on the season. They need to get rid of him. He doesn't fit. He doesn't fit their offense. And especially in the state that their team is in, because they're a shootout team now. They have to win shootouts. They can't be running 2-down grinder plotters, onto the field. And I mean, it's not LeGarrette Blount. It's not even close to LeGarrette Blount. They're not building 21-point leads and giving their grinder 12 carries in the fourth quarter. That is not happening this year. It's not going to happen against anyone. They get smashed by the Jets, so Mike Gillislee, he should be inactive on game days unless he's covering kicks. When Rex Burkhead comes back, Mike Gillislee should be inactive unless he's covering kicks. Dion Lewis, however, is very interesting. His usage has risen on a weekly basis. Last week, he played more snaps than any RB in the Patriots backfield, 43%, which is a lot for a Patriots running back. He had 11 touches. He scored 2 touchdowns inside the 10 over the last 3 games. Mike Gillislee has 0. So I wanted to get Reeves' take on Dion Lewis. Now, he's much more of a DK play, and this is not on the main slate for DK. But I still want to hear what Reeves has to say.
Yeah, I basically wrote all that up, in a shorter span in the worksheet, about Dion Lewis's rising snapshot. He's basically taking Gillislee's spot, because Dion Lewis really isn't. He's not catching passes. He's not being used as a satellite back. He's basically just taking Gillislee's spot at this point. That's basically what's happening. There was a span last year too, where before he got hurt again, that he was taking LeGarrette Blount's lead spot for a little bit. You remember that Denver game? He had all those carries and got goal line carries. And it was like, well, what's happening? And there was a kind of a 2 or 3 week gap there where Dion Lewis was getting feature back touches, or in that role in the offense. I mean, yeah, I think he's a really nice sneaky play here in this spot, especially because not really anyone's going to be on him. I picked him up in a couple season long leagues that he was still floating around in. I was able to grab him. Just hopefully something happens. It's hard to dislike really anyone on the Patriots outside of Gillislee. Everyone's kind of in like a really, really, really good spot. I mean, Amendola's in a great spot. When you think about it, he was a huge factor in the Super Bowl last year. Now he's playing Edelman's spot, and he's got the most favorable matchup because, Desmond Trufant didn't play in the Super Bowl game. Gronk didn't play in that game. Those guys are going to be active. I think it really sets
Gronk week.
Gronk has just been awesome since he's been back. Outside of week 1, he's been incredible. You just keep
always a
playing
Gronk week.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, if you want to pay for it and you can afford it, I mean, there's no, and you probably can this week because there's not a lot of great wide receiver plays. I think at the top, I think you got Dez, Michael Thomas. You can always play Antonio Brown, but I mean, there's not like nothing great, that really allures me in that top shelf wide receivers. You can pay for Gronk. The problem is this is like the first like really good tight end week we've had in a while outside of the top. We've got a lot of mid-tier tight ends that really have great matchups this week, where we just haven't had that the past few weeks, where we've been trying to jam guys in like Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper and Austin Sperry-Jenkins every week because that's just what's been there. But now we've got Delaney Walker on the board, Jimmy Graham's on the board. All these guys have great plays. But I mean, yeah, I think it's business as usual, with the Patriots. You kind of just mix and match those guys all around. I did like Taylor Gabriel too a little bit until, Sanu kind of popped back up. I was really disappointed when I saw that. But I like Deion Lewis. I love the Deion
Crain
Lewis
was
ball.
probably excited though.
I was. I mean, that just means I don't have to keep chasing Taylor Gabriel. That's another guy who I roster every week, and I don't have to worry about it now.
Hey,
But
he was a good play last week. He had 8 targets.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can ask out of him. It's just Matt Ryan. He's real overrated. Aaron Rodgers should have been the MVP last year, by the way. It should not have been Matt Ryan. Maybe give him OPOY, Offensive Player of the Year, but he was not the MVP last year. It was Aaron Rodgers with that. He dragged a terrible defense. I mean, he's more valuable than Matt Ryan. I don't even think it's even close.
All right. Anything else we need to touch on in this game, or can we head over to bounce backs? All right, we're heading over to bounce backs. That's how I know the answer. It's just like Evan takes a sip, Reeves sits there hitting an up, down, left, right. I get it. All right, let's talk about some bounce back. Reeves, who you got this week?
I don't really have anyone. I came in unprepared. I think Michael Thomas is a great bounce back. I think Delaney Walker, but Evan wants to talk about Delaney Walker. Obviously, Delaney Walker's in a good spot this week.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been good for a month.
Who was the other guy that I sent? Reeves.
I actually would like to talk about Shady. Do you want to talk about Shady for a little bit? It was LaShawn McCoy.
Yes. Talk about Shady.
Well, I wanted to hear your take on Shady because I know a lot of people are going to look at what Adrian Peterson did at Tampa Bay and be real excited about LaShawn McCoy being at home, and I'm into LaShawn McCoy as well. Chris Rayban has brought this up too, but the scheme change has really hurt LaShawn McCoy. Him running from under center has just been a travesty this year. He's not getting – you look at last year, almost 80% of his carries came from out of the gun, pistol situations where he's averaging over 5 yards per carry. Now he's at 71 of 86 carries from under center, and on those carries he's averaging 2.8 yards per carry. When he has gotten the shotgun carries, he's still getting 5.5 yards per carry. He's just, they've switched the scheme up there and it really hasn't benefited him. What saved LaShawn McCoy so far, he's got a career high target share in the passing game right now. And it's really given him a really safe floor. And we know he also hasn't scored a touchdown yet. We know he's eventually going to score a touchdown. So, I mean, you can chase that. I'm real curious, though, for you to break it down. So I like him. I think he's a great season will play. But I think that I also think Tampa Bay's defense isn't as bad as it was on Sunday. I don't know what the hell that was about. Just getting dominated by that Cardinals front. And I know that the Cardinals got linemen back, but if you're going to tell me they got DJ Humphries back and that was a great significant change compared to the Arizona guys maybe, but not to NFL stance. They were dominating Gerald McCoy. It was I don't know what the hell that was about.
Reeves.
But hit me.
The reason that is because freaking Adrian Peterson is really, really good.
Yeah.
That's I'm
I will live with that.
Now, that is the reason.
Is that a hot take?
No, it's not a hot take. Go watch the friggin' game, dude. Adrian Peterson.
Wait! You watched the games?
Yes, I.
Yes,
God!
yes. I didn't know when we were talking about being prepared for the show. That was something we had.
Right, so here's the thing. All right. So in 2015, I think that was the first year that I really started hammering best ball leagues. I drafted a lot of Andre Johnson that year when he was with the Colts, when he was playing with Andrew Luck. And I really thought that this was a revisit of that. Okay, because I was hammering Adrian Peterson in best ball leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And Reeves was too, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I just thought it was a total repeat of this. And the sample was so limited on Adrian Peterson with the Saints. And every time that he would be in the game, it's like a tell to the defense exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. So he really had no chance to succeed, even behind a great offensive line in a great offense. He had no chance to succeed. And now, if they're gonna saddle him up like that, he was making I would say he's like 85% of Adrian Peterson in his prime, that's a very, very good running back. I mean, he's making jump cuts in the hole. He's running over dudes in the open field. He had all that production. This best run of the game was called back due to a penalty. Mm-hmm. He had a 2-yard run down the right sideline that was called back due to a penalty. And he still finished with what he had. I mean, he can still play. I mean, maybe he'll get hurt. He's old. He'll slow down, but he's real good. I mean,
is that line doing him any favors though, or is it just all AP?
I thought that he was awesome. I mean, I thought he was awesome.
You love AP so much.
I wouldn't go that far.
You do.
I had him in a bunch of season-long leagues last week. I didn't start him.
Yeah, same.
I thought he was a lost cause. I mean, I really did.
All right.
Well, I mean, there wasn't a lot of things that pointed to.
There were zero things. There were zero.
But there's a lot pointing to Adrian Peterson this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I can definitely.
What were we talking about?
Well, who cares? Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I understand the scheme narrative, but over the course of time, I think that scheme narratives are usually way overrated.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, over the past 2 games, the Buccaneers have given up 5.2 yards per carry to opposing running backs. LaShawn McCoy already leads the team in targets, and that target number should be enhanced by the losses of Jordan Matthews to thumb surgery, Charles Clay to a knee injury. LaShawn McCoy is a home favorite running back in a favorable matchup with huge workload potential. I think that he is playable in the same lineups as the Bills defense. And he's also playable in the same lineups with Tyrod Taylor, because who the heck else is Tyrod Taylor going to throw to?
You get the whole offense.
This dude has double-digit target potential and 25 to 30 carry potential. So, and he's under 8,000 on FanDuel. So, I'm going to have he's facing a Bucs defense that has not been good against the run in 2 straight games. And is traveling they played in Arizona last week. Now they're going to the Ralph in Buffalo. There are a lot of strong, for me, there are a lot of strong points here for LaShawn McCoy.
Do we think EJ Gaines is going to play?
He already called out Mike Evans. He has to play.
Well, I see him listed as questionable right now. That's why I was asking. If not,
you can't run your mouth.
About EJ Gaines? Are you worried about EJ Gaines?
No, I'm worried. No, I'm talking about EJ Gaines because I was saying I might run it back on the other way with Mike Evans.
In case it's like a high-scoring game?
Yeah, in case it's a high-scoring game. That way I can have you can get Tyrod, Evans, and Shady McCoy and just kind of mix and match those. That's what I was checking out. There's a method to my madness. I mean, it's no George Kittle love, but it's up there. All right, let's talk about some running backs that we like. We just got done talking about Shady McCoy. Rich, who are some of the other running backs you're looking at this week?
I still want to talk about Peterson as it pertains this week, and not just talking about Austin.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
I mean, we can rehash what he did. I mean, he basically outproduced Arizona's entire rushing season to this point. I mean, he had 4 carries of 10 or more yards last week. They had 2 with his Arizona running backs. They had 4 as a team and 2 were by wide receivers. So just 2 by backs before that. Like I said, I don't know if I want to go so far to say he's locked in, he's back, you have to play him. I mean, right. He runs into a phenomenal play again. If he's going to get that type of value while the game script is still neutral or favorable. I mean, they're playing a Rams team that's not going to run away from them on the scoreboard, and it's a Rams team that has just been a sieve. They have a lot of top 12 scoring running back in every game except for to the Colts and to the Seahawks. two teams that just can't run the football, basically on anyone. And it's not just they're allowing points in the passing game; they're allowing 19.2 rushing points per game to opposing backfields, which is the most in the NFL. So I mean, if the game script's going to be there, AP in London, man, get him on the pitch. He's RB21 on FanDuel. Like, he's a perfect FanDuel play. I think you can cash game play him at his price.
60,
on FanDuel.
yeah, really?
He's 6,300. RB21. I mean, if you're telling me he's probably gonna get 17 carries at least in that game against the worst NFL, the worst run defense for fantasy. And he had long runs last week. It wasn't like he didn't just compile.
I'll tell you what, if you go watch his runs from last week, just watch all 26. If you watch his friggin' runs from last week, you'll want to play him on FanDuel.
Well, I mean, I watched a good, healthy chunk of that game, and I distinctly remember the run you're talking about. I called back up the right sideline, and obviously the touchdown.
That would have put him at like 170.
And the touchdown was just unreal. The jump cut he made in the touchdown was just unreal. But I mean, I'm looking at the price, the matchup, and the value, and I mean, it's there for like a safe floor.
Well, and the upside's there too. I mean, and I love, by the way, I'm going to use get him on the pitch all week. That's a great one. All right, let's talk about some wideouts and some tight ends. Evan, we already talked about there are a lot of good tight end plays this week. Let's go ahead and talk about them. We got Gronk, we got Ertz in a good spot, Delaney against Cleveland, any tight end against Cleveland. Jimmy Graham at the Giants. Like, there are a lot of good tight ends this week, and they're all pretty reasonably priced.
Yeah, and I also like Hunter Henry. Again, he was my go-to tight end last week, and I mean, I still think, I mean, his price went down on FanDuel. It went from 5,400 to 5,200, and he gets actually a better matchup this week against the Broncos. And his usage right now, I think, is locked in. He's awesome at football. I mean, I want to go right back to him. And you mentioned Delaney, Gronk. These guys are awesome plays. And I think that Hunter Henry is just like he should be a top 7 or top 6 ranked tight end on the week, and he's 5,200 and on FanDuel. And I think that's the dude I'm probably gonna run with. I'm gonna ride with him.
See, I'm a little sad that everybody's talking about Delaney Walker this week because I've been trying to make Delaney Walker happen for 4 weeks now, and it just hasn't. And now the 1 week that it is going to happen, everybody's going to be on him, and it's just going to – I'm going to feel a little jaded if I'm being honest.
Hey, he's 5th among all NFL tight ends in catches, but I don't even think he is a red zone target on the year yet.
Yeah, that's not cool, Delaney.
He's never been a high touchdown guy.
True. He had like 7 last year. That was big for him.
He's got a rushing touchdown this year.
I was going to say last week he had one rush for -3 yards. Thanks, Titans.
Dude, that's the it's NFL shovel pass, man. It's just like it's not like the Wildcat or like whatever. But this is like the play du jour this year. Like, everyone is running this tight end shovel pass or running back shovel pass, like a little zone. I like the teams that mix the zone read in. Panthers have run that shovel pass with the zone read mixed in. Like, that's a tough play to defend. But everyone's running this play, man. Everyone's running it this year. And I feel like there's so many touchdowns scored off that this year.
All right. So some other wide receiver plays for you, Reeves.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at Jimmy Graham, like we talked about. I mean, I'm looking at his price just $200 higher than Tyler Kroft this week, and it sets up perfectly for him. I mean, you got playing against, the Giants. I mean, with Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie come back, I mean, he's a guy that could give Doug Baldwin a problem. And Doug Baldwin's been terrible for fantasy so far. He's had one good game. He's finished higher than wide receiver 39 in PPR just once so far all year. Just hasn't been there. The production hasn't been there. This is a game that sets up well for Graham. The last 3 weeks, he's been a tight end 1 every one of those weeks. We know the Giants have allowed a tight end to score in every single game this year. They faced the most targets to tight ends. They allowed the most touchdowns. They have the second most receiving yards, the second most receptions per game to that position. I'm looking at his price. And then Seattle also, because they can't run, when they get in the red zone, they've just been throwing like crazy. They have the highest passing rate in the red zone in the NFL. So, I mean, everything bodes well for Jimmy Graham. They actually have given him some targets this year in the red zone. I mean, he had the fade route they caught against the Rams for the TD. I'm looking at his price, though, and it's really hard for me not to push the button on Jimmy Graham this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on team.
Three good games in a row, coming off the bye, to get healthier. Best matchup possible.
I'm just torn because I have George Kittle and Jimmy Graham in season long.
No, you play Jimmy Graham.
I'm going to play Jimmy Graham, but it hurts my heart not to be able to play George Kittle.
Play him in the flex, bro. Flex.
Yeah, well, I might do that, but that's where Jerick McKinnon plays, so I don't think.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
We'll be your guy then.
Go Team Crane. All right, we got to get off here, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Rich Hribar, it's been great as always. Evan Silva, now that you're a big celebrity, I'm just honored that you would still join us. Mr. ESPN.
Hey, no, I gave this show a huge shout out, man.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you didn't even listen. You didn't even listen.
I haven't listened yet. No,
I just shouted you out hard, bro.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
I bet I got like text messages from Schefter and everything. Hold on, let me check. Nope, nothing there. All right, maybe later. It's been a lot of fun, though, guys. For Rich Hribar, for Evan Silva, this has been Rotoworld's DFS Pick 6, sponsored by RotoGrinders. I'm Eric Crain. We'll see you guys later. Peace.